Now we have our speaker for today. It is Reverend Charles Loflin. He is Executive Director of the FaithAction, New Jersey. So I can't remember when we last had a legitimate UU official speaking to us. So much appreciated. And I understand he volunteered to do this, even when not directly asked. So that's great. And I only just met Charles this morning. He seems quite articulate, so this should be pretty interesting. Thanks.
Good morning, everyone. Now the pressure is on. I have to be articulate and official and all of this stuff. Let me begin by saying it is a true pleasure to be with you today. I am so grateful for the invitation. And I want to thank this congregation, thank you individually, for the part that you play in UU Faith Action New Jersey's work. I'll talk a little bit more about that as we get into it. But now more than ever, the work that we do is so vitally important to bring a voice for social justice here in the state. Oh, yes, absolutely. How's that? Is that a little better? Okay, we'll give that a shot. Good. All right. So again, thank you. Thank you for all the work that you have done as a congregation and individually over the years in support of UU Faith Action New Jersey. We appreciate it so much. It's what we do collectively that can make a difference. Today, though, I want to begin with a story. And the story I've chosen comes from the writer Thomas King. Thomas King is an award-winning novelist. He's a short story writer, a script writer, a photographer. He's the recipient of a Lifetime Achievement Award and was made a member of the Order of Canada. And until his retirement, he taught native literature and history as well as creative writing. This is from his book, The Truth About Stories. Stories are wondrous things, and they are dangerous. The native novelist Leslie Silko, in her book Ceremony, tells how evil came into the world. It was witch people. Not whites or Indians or blacks or Asians or Hispanics, but witch people. Witch people from all over the world, way back when. And they all came together for a witches' conference in a cave, having a good time. It was a contest, actually, to see who could come up with the scariest thing. Some of them brewed up potions in pots. Some of them jumped in and out of animal skin. Some of them thought up charms and spells. Oh, it must have been fun to watch. Until finally, there was only one witch who hadn't done anything. No one knew where this witch came from. All this witch had was a story. Unfortunately, the story this witch told was an awful thing, full of fear and slaughter, disease and blood, a story of murderous mischief. And when the telling was done, the other witches quickly agreed that this witch had won the prize. Okay. You win, they said. But what you said just now, it isn't so funny. It doesn't sound so good. We are doing okay without it. We can get along without that sort of thing. So take it back. Call that story back. But of course, it was too late. For once a story is told, it cannot be called back. Once told, it is loose in the world. My friends, have I got a story for you? It's a pretty good way to get someone's attention, don't you think? It pulls you right in, right to the edge of your seat. It's as if to say, pay attention, because what's about to happen is going to be important. You're going to want to know this. You're going to want to listen. Have I got a story for you? See, that's the thing about us as human beings. We are, all of us, natural storytellers. Perhaps you could say we are inevitable storytellers. Whether we're trying to or not, our very lives are telling stories. We can't help but tell stories. We think in stories. We dream in stories. We remember our histories in stories. We convey those meanings to the next generations in stories. The scientists tell us that storytelling played a major role in our evolutionary survival. It provided an adaptive advantage because it fostered group communication. It was a way of facilitating cooperation amongst different people through storytelling. We are, in some ways, hardwired for storytelling. But what, my friends, what if storytelling could be more than just a rhetorical tool? What if storytelling literally had the power to change the world? Boy, have I got a story for you. Thomas King, from whom I read that story this morning, he's a Canadian-American writer of Cherokee and Greek ancestry. He's regarded as one of the most influential indigenous writers and scholars of his generation. That book, The Truth About Stories, is one of the very first books I was assigned to read when I went to seminary. And it's a book that I long to return to over and over again. I find myself going back and back to it. It's just one of those miraculous little books that moves me and continues to move me. But one of the things I love about Thomas King's writing is that he recognizes the history from which he is coming. He is a teller of stories, and the words that he shares are those of many tongues and mouths and people who have come before him. And he is, in a real sense, a listener to their stories and a reteller of the stories in new patterns, much like we are. And fundamental in that acknowledgement is that very real sense that he himself is the product of story. In other words, he is the result of someone else's story, which suggests that all of us are the result of someone else's story. Isn't that an awe-inspiring concept? And it's actually extremely powerful because I think it means, at least in part, that there's a direct connection between the story of who we are and who we actually are. There's a relationship. They're not necessarily the same thing, but they are related. Let me try to explain that a little bit further. The real question is, who do you understand yourself to be? In that deepest part of your own self-knowledge, who are you? We each are asking ourselves that question in some ways. Who am I? Who am I? And if I stop and consider how I would answer that question if it was directly posed to me, someone asked me, who are you? You know, the answer I would give them would depend a whole lot on the context. It would depend on who I was talking to, what was important to them, what language they understood, what imagery was important for them. So imagine it could be that my response is going to be based in psychology, or it's going to be based in philosophy, or some other discipline. Maybe it's accurate to say that we express that inherently complicated answer of who we are through a process of storytelling itself. We tell stories about who we really are, about what really motivates us, what really genuinely moves us. So from that perspective, do we not make our truest self known through story? You see, that's what it's about. It's the concept of self. It's the self-expression. It's identifying who you are. You can only do that through the process of storytelling. That is extremely powerful. It's the concept of identity. It asks us to consider, how do we know ourselves? How are we defined? It touches on self-awareness and self-concept. The very idea that there is a self is a product of our storytelling. And here's the thing, friends. If any part of that is true, if storytelling plays such an integral role in how we understand ourselves and the world around us, then it matters greatly what story we're telling about ourselves. It matters. You see, we are the stories we are telling ourselves. And the stories we are telling are who we are becoming. It's part of who we will be. And here's the tricky part of that, because I know in my own life, things get really complicated when I start thinking about who I really am, who I really want to be, what stories I'm telling about myself, and what stories I'm allowing other people to tell about me. Some of us, me being one of them, has struggled all my life with things like negative self-talk. That voice in the back of your head that's always present, always saying, you're not good enough. You're an imposter. You say one thing and you do something else. You want people to believe that you're a certain way, but deep down inside, you're not really all that, are you? That negative voice is hard to silence. It's a struggle. It's a struggle. But here's the thing. If Thomas King is right and the truth about stories is that stories are all we are, because that's what he says over and over again. He says those literal words. The truth about stories is that stories are all we are. If that is true, then we are the stories we choose to tell ourselves. And if we listen too intently to that critic in the back of our heads, we will become the negative things that we tell ourselves. It's a vicious cycle. And let me be absolutely clear. I don't know if there's anyone in this room or online who needs to hear this, but let's say it. Let's say it very, very clearly. The one fundamental truth to be found in Unitarian Universalism as a faith is that every single person is worthy of dignity, of love, and of respect. Period. End of sentence. Even if you can't sometimes see that in your own life, you are worthy. Even if you don't feel like it some days, you are worthy. Even if that voice in the back of your head is telling you that you're not good enough, know that you are worthy. You are worthy just the way you are. Just the way you are. That is the message of Unitarian Universalism. That is the overriding reason for our existence, is to remind each other and the entire world that all people are worthy. Because the truth about stories is stories are all we are. Have I got a story for you? But you see, that's not all. Because here's the thing. If it is true that individually there's a relationship between the stories that we tell about ourselves and who we are becoming, then it only stands to reason that collectively there's a relationship between the stories we tell about who we are and who we are collectively becoming. That is why covenant and right relationship must be central to our faith. A faith community such as ours thrives only because the stories we tell matter. It matters not only the stories we tell, but how we tell them, how we tell the story of who we are, how we relate to each other, and who we are becoming collectively. The truth about stories is stories are all we are. These stories not only communicate who we say we are, but in a great way, they will dictate who we possibly could become. Storytelling has long been a tool of connection, of healing, of meaning-making. It can be an antidote for despair, a remedy that helps people navigate even the most difficult moments. I can't imagine anyone living in difficult times. Can you? How do we get through these very times? Well, one of the answers is by storytelling. Because we have to be able to imagine the world we're trying to create. And if we can't tell stories about what happens in this moment to make the next moment possible, and then the next moment, and then the next moment, then it will never happen. Because there is a narrative out there that we are competing against. A narrative that is negative, that says we are done, that says we are less than, that some people matter more than others, that there are some who are entitled to more than everyone else, that some people are expendable. That's the story being told, and there needs to be a counter narrative, a counter story. And friends, if we don't tell that story, it will not be told. We may not have the bully pulpit. We may not have the mouthpiece of the national media, but we have the power of telling a real story to the people around us, because that's the way change actually happens. Because the truth about stories is stories are all we are. I get that despair can arise when we believe that our struggles are insurmountable, but storytelling really can help us get through this. It can be a path to transcending the moment. It is an invitation. Storytelling is an invitation to imagine how it's possible to get to the world we dream about. It's an invitation to imagine how little changes can make a difference and move the entire world. When we tell the story of our shared journey, even in the face of difficulty, we help to make that reality possible. If you're feeling despair, friends, sit down and imagine the story you want to be able to tell sometime from now. Looking back and to say, yes, it was a hard time, but this is what we did. This is how we got through it. Because telling that story, imagining it as possible, makes it a possibility, helps to create that reality. Moreover, storytelling actually encourages divergent thinking. The process of us telling stories is that often we generate multiple unconventional ideas. When we imagine how to solve an issue collectively through the storytelling, we will uncover things that we will never uncover with our intellects alone. The imagination, the possibility, all matters. Good stories, you know this, they are full of twists. They are full of plot surprises. They are full of unexpected turns. Good stories are never smooth going all the time. There's always something that has to be overcome. There's always an obstacle that the heroes encounter, but they find a way together to get through it. It mirrors the creative problem-solving process that you have right here in this faith community, in this fellowship, where solutions are often not going to be linear. Friends, you're not going to think yourself into a new way of acting. You're going to act yourself into a new way of thinking. That's the power of storytelling. Have I got a story for you? Now, I'm going to guess, because this is a Unitarian Universalist fellowship, that there's some skeptics in the room, because we tend to collect skeptics along the way. Some of you are thinking, now wait just a minute, minister. Are you really just suggesting that if we think happy thoughts and tell positive stories that everything is guaranteed to turn out right? No, that's not what I'm saying. That is at best magical thinking. And it's part of the thing that got us into the problem that we're in now anyway. And at worst, it can devolve into something that is a false narrative. Do you remember that from the reading? Stories are wondrous things, and they are dangerous. The false narrative is dangerous, and it is out there. Because if people hear that story over and over and over again, they will live into fulfilling that story. The narrative absolutely matters. We need a conscious choice to shift the focus, to ask ourselves, what are the steps that can help make the process possible? And then we need to begin to tell that story. You're a Unitarian Universalist congregation. You're a fellowship. What story are you telling about yourself? Are you telling the story about days when this used to be a great place? Are you telling yourself stories about when it was fabulous but not anymore? Are you telling yourself the story that you're no longer relevant to the community around you? And if you're telling that story, stop. Tell the alternative story. The possibility that you can be a beacon of light in a community that desperately needs you. The possibility that you, by your actions, by your love, by your communicating that every person is worthy and dignified and exactly the way they need to be, that message will resonate, that you can build connections and community, that you can find your place here to be of service in this time. Yes, it may be different from anything you've done before. It has to be different from anything you've done before because we're part of a story where the plot is twisting and changing. But we determine who we're going to be. The truth about stories is stories are all we are. Thomas King always says that stories are wondrous things and they are dangerous. Like the tale in the reading of the witches. That story was an awful thing full of fear and slaughter, disease and blood, a story of murderous mischief. Feels a little bit like the story we're hearing nationally, doesn't it? A whole lot. And like the witches, we can cry out. We can say, we don't need that. We've had enough of that. That thing you just said, not so nice. We can do without that story. Please call it back. Call it back. But you can't call the story back. Because once the story is out there, it's loose in the world. It's living. It's competing. What can you do? You can tell the alternative story. And for us, that's a story that is not a false narrative, but a story that is based in love and truth and the values that we hold dear. Now, you may be wondering, hey, wait a minute, I thought you were executive director for this social justice organization in New Jersey. Why aren't you talking about that? I am. Because this is what my job is. It's to tell the story of how we as Unitarian Universalists, though we may be small in number, we are moving the needle on social justice at the state level. We're doing that by telling the story of who we want to be, of the New Jersey that we could become, of what happens if engaged people really take part and become part of the process. I'm trying to tell a story of an organization that is different than it used to be, is figuring out where it needs to go with the new challenges, but is stepping boldly into that future, ready to be what is needed for the cause of social justice. The truth about stories is stories are all we are. And that's the truth about the organization that I run. I would love to talk to you more about what we do, especially if you have a penchant for social justice. I'd like to share details about what we're doing. I hope you will join us as we have a coffee and connection time following the service. I'd love to share some of those details with you. But most importantly, I want to leave you with this idea that the story you're telling matters, and that the story you tell makes possible the world to come. Thomas King ends a lot of his stories with these words, or something like it. He does different variations with the different stories that he tells. But I will, in the spirit of Thomas King, I will share these words with you this morning. Take this story, the story I've just told you. Take it. It's yours. It's yours. You can do with it whatever you want to do. You can tell it to your children and grandchildren. You could tell it to your neighbors and your family. You could cry about it. You could get angry. But what you can't say in the years to come is that you would have lived your life differently if only you had heard that story. Because you've heard that story now. It's loose in the world. Oh, friends, have I got a story for you. And I imagine you've got a story for me too. Blessed be and amen.